This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.
Given the growing uncertainty with respect to jobs across the globe, we had an eminent panel to discuss and deliberate on the way forward for the job creation opportunities in India. The panelists for this discussion included Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission, S. Ramadurai, Chairman, National Skill Development Agency, and Dr. Romesh Wadhwani, Founder Chairman, Wadhwani Foundation. You know, a lot has been said about the rate of growth in this country and the unprecedented high economic growth that we saw in the 10th and the 11th plan. Unfortunately, that did not result in significant job creation. In fact, it actually was a period of jobless growth. I know we can quibble about those numbers and we can quibble about the data, but let me just throw some of that data for you to sort of mull over. In terms of the employment elasticity, which is the rate of change of employment marked to the GDP, it's actually been securely declining from 2000's 0.44% between 1999 to 2000, and in the period of 2004-2005, and then again 2009-2010, which were high growth periods, it has come down to about 0.01%, so which is virtually zero, which means we've been seeing a period of jobless growth. So with that context set, let me put my first question to you, Ms. Ahluwalia. What can we really expect now? Because growth rates have come down significantly. We're not talking about 8%. We'll be lucky if we do 5.5%. 6% seems like a bit of a stretch at this point in time. If we come down to this level of growth, what happens then to the vision of job creation? What happens to the employment opportunity that we so desperately need for a country that talks about its demographic dividend and its demographic advantage?
There's absolutely no question that in order to achieve what we want to achieve and what we need, you've got to have a much more robust growth performance. Neither last year nor this year can be called good years, not just for India but for the whole global economy. So I think we need, if you're taking a medium-term view, my view is that the sort of perspective that we had in mind, that India can get to a stable, sustainable 8% growth rate, remains valid.
Okay.
The challenge is that in the first 2 years of the 12th plan, we've been knocked off that trajectory. Almost every other country has also been knocked off their trajectory, and so we must just get back to it. So there's a whole agenda, and we can discuss what that is. It's quite charming, actually, that when the NSS shows poverty has declined, everybody says that's rubbish. When the NSS seems to show that unemployment growth has decelerated, everybody treats this as a gospel truth. The same NSS data, by the way, there's an important point for your viewers. That if you compare, there are 3 data points only, 94, 2004, and 2011.
Right.
It is factually true that more jobs were created between 94 and 2004 than between 2004 and 2011.
Right.
However, the increase in the labor force in the first period was also much more. And as a result, in the first period, the rate of unemployment actually increased. In the second period, the labor force didn't increase that much. We think because a lot of people were in school. And the rate of unemployment actually declined. So the first point I want your viewers to note is that the high growth, it's totally false and possibly deliberately misleading to present the high growth period as a jobless growth period.
Mr. Wadhwani, let me ask you, because you're hoping that we are going to be able to skill enough people and that those skilled people will eventually find employment. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of a situation. Are you feeling confident and optimistic that India is going to be able to deliver on the kind of job creation that we need to?
Major challenges ahead. So let me explain. So first of all, my definition of skilling is not just about giving people the talent that they need to become employable. It's about actually making sure that they get employed. In other words, there has to be connectivity between the employer community and the skilling community.
Absolutely.
Because Otherwise, it's like clapping with one hand. You know, you skill someone, but they're still unemployed. What was the point of skilling them? The second observation is that, at least in this particular domain, India is the land of bogus statistics. The NSSO...
He's rubbished them as well.
Yeah, we all agree on that. We completely agree. And of course, the way the statistics are done would have been appropriate for 50 years ago. It is not appropriate for the world of today. They're very aggregate, they're very old, they're very inaccurate, they're done on very small point samples. There are multiple problems with the actual methodology that's being used. And then if you look at the so-called employment forecast for 10 years out, first of all, I have no idea how people come up with a forecast 10 years out, but let's assume that there was some magic there. The forecast is that the total workforce will go up from 475 million, organized and unorganized, to 585 million. That's 110 million net new jobs. Last 7 years, 15 million. Next 10 years, 110 million. What magic change is going to happen? Where are those jobs going to come from, right? And to really keep track of where those jobs are going to be and to make sure that there is good harmony and balance between job creation and skilling, we need a much better, much more real-time ability to collect labor data and jobs data. We don't have it today. The second big challenge is we need to take our skill development initiatives and translate them into an agenda of actionability. Because aspirational goals are all dandy, but if you can't actually execute them, that's why they fail.
Absolutely. Let me come to you now, Mr. Ramadhurai. And the mandate of the NSDC is really to, for the first time, look at skilling India in an organized fashion. And I know it's been a successful beginning as far as the NSDC is concerned. But what are the big challenges that you're up against at this point in time?
Well, I think, see, the NSDC last year skilled about 400,000 people. This year we are scaling up to 10 lakhs, which is 2.5 times what we were used to doing. The number of partners whom we have funded, whether as grants, whether as debt funding or a portion of the equity, has increased substantially based on the sector gap, skill gap analysis we have done. We don't want everybody to be starting only on IT or IT-enabled services program. Second one we are focused on is to the reach, which is beyond the traditional 4 southern states. The most populous states must be brought into the whole skill building agenda. So if you don't do it in a UP or a Bihar or a Jharkhand or a Bengal or whatever it is, you're not going to get the kind of numbers. And the mobility of the people, which is a big problem, will create a lot of problems for us. So the sector skill gap studies plus the funding for the right partners and measuring them through the technology-based systems is going to be very, very critical.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Technology is never about what you see on the outside. It's not just gold metal wires and circuits. It's about giving people access to a healthier life so that they can be there for their loved ones. It doesn't discriminate between people, no matter who they are, where they are from, young or old, starting out or settling down. Technology opens its doors to everyone and tells them that there is hope. That's what our advanced cancer diagnostic scanners do every day. For more and more people in India now, technology is hope.
Hey! There! It takes a winner to bring a smile to every face. Indian Overseas Bank. Touching hearts, spreading smiles. We'll stay right beside
durability, reliability. It's what makes a Toyota leader.
From the producers of 6 successful investor-thons comes a brand new season of standing up and showing your support for the Indian investor, for the health of the Indian capital markets, for building a bigger and stronger investor base, and turning words into action by running at the Investor-thon. NSE and CNBC TV18 proudly present Investor-thon 2013. Coming soon.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
Nacho Gao Tyohar Manao. This festive season, win up to 1 kilo gold. Get up to 3 years insurance and assured gold coins with every purchase of a Tata Motors car. Tata Motors Nacho Gao Tyohar Manao offer. Rush to your nearest dealership now.
Papa, car.
New food.
खरीद लो.
नए गहने.
जब तक आपके पास पैसों का पेड़ नहीं आ जाता, तब तक आपके पैसों की हर जरूरत के लिए है IIFL. जब बात हो पैसों की.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
At the end of the day, you're going to have all of these skilled people. The point is, are you going to have enough jobs to get them? Forget growth, whether it's 5% or 8%. Let's talk about the manufacturing sector. The point is that we keep changing the goalpost. The tendency in our policy making to change the goalpost, which creates or vitiates the environment, the investment climate, which creates a sense of uncertainty for an investor. And those are the guys who are going to be creating these high-quality jobs that you were just talking about. How do we get rid of this to get those kind of jobs going in the sector?
I think there's no doubt that on the manufacturing side, the performance has been below our targets. You know, some of the things you're talking about, which is these issues of uncertainty, etc., these have been particularly strong in the last 18 months or 2 years. In the previous period, it wasn't this uncertainty. I mean, the real issue was, although we had a reasonably high growth rate for the economy, we weren't actually getting a 10+% growth in manufacturing. Now, many people, including us, have analyzed that. And I do think that part of the problem really is weak infrastructure. Because, you know, if you're going to have manufacturing that is competitive, that reaches certain standards of whatever efficiency, you need much better connectivity to deliver physical products from A to B. We're weak on that, and that's well identified. That's the whole focus on trying to improve infrastructure. I think we'll be able to do that, maybe a little later than we would like to, but that's on the agenda for sure. You mentioned another aspect that people frequently refer to, and that is the inflexibilities in our labor market. I think that's true, and I mean, we have said in the 12th plan and very often in the government debate, this is recognized, but it's a political issue. And I think the official position of the government is that we need greater flexibility.
But we won't do it.
No, I'll put it differently. What we said is we need to build a consensus with labor. Now let me make one point. If the most important thing is to get infrastructure right, it makes sense for the government to get that sorted out. That itself will add something to manufacturing growth. Labor is necessarily a politically sensitive thing, and when you fix these other problems, I think we will be able to do something on the labor front also.
Go ahead, sir.
So let me add to what Montek is saying here. And I think a good way to respond to your question is to dimensionalize where the jobs are going to be. Now, I want to start by saying that everything I'm about to say is based on the facts as they are available today. So everything depends on the accuracy of the...
Which data?
Exactly. It's all the translation of NSSO data, right? But if you believe the employment forecast 10 years out, and just directionally, let's assume it's correct, even if it may not be precisely accurate, of the roughly 120-odd million jobs that will be created additively to the current workforce, 65 million are in construction. Some of them will be rural construction, some of them will be urban construction. Regardless of what we do in skilling, those will be relatively low skill, relatively low paying jobs, and in many cases will be filled with migrant labor, in some cases farmers moving from their farms into the construction industry because of a lack of alternatives out there. So when we talk about manufacturing, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, it's important not to let that monopolize the conversation because that's not where the largest number of jobs is. It's construction first, services second. Now, in this 120 million forecast, whatever the quality of that may be, 15 million is expected to come from manufacturing. If programs could be put in place, not just government, I'm now blaming Indian industry as well, to accelerate the rate of innovation, then we have a chance to fill some portion of that 15 million opportunity. But if we don't, I guarantee that of all the numbers I've mentioned, that 15 million will not be met. The services number may be met, the construction number may be met. Manufacturing can be met, but will only be met if there's a commitment to innovation.
You know, we've bashed the government enough, but I want you to counter what Mr. Wadhwani had to say about Indian industry, and whether it's IT or pharma or whatever the case may be, not being innovative enough, not being IP-centric enough to create the kind of job opportunities that are needed.
First, I'll start with the industry I know, namely IT and IT-enabled services.
Yes.
Somebody says we have not been able to innovate, they are talking without knowing the facts. Second is, it has reinvented itself over the last 20 years plus with regard to both offshore as well as process improvements as well as intellectual property creation, and the next wave is absolutely the product creation. I think it's mature enough to create the skills necessary, mature enough to adapt to the market needs and focus on the customer rather than worry about policies, etc. So I think that's one. Second is the medium enterprises, not necessarily the small ones. I think the market access will give you the kind of capital they need. Market access will give them the kind of quality initiative they need to put in place. And also the big players, whether they are in the automotive industry or in the FMCG industry or whatever it is, will tell the suppliers what to do, which means the responsibility they carry to the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 vendors has to be one of quality and excellence if you want to create a growth and a market which is beyond your own boundaries. I think we are putting together some structures to address that issue, which means newer equipment, different ways of manufacturing, different process improvements, and how does it fit into the overall supply chain. I think we need to put some pilots on that.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Technology is never about what you see on the outside. It's not just gold metal wires and circuits. It's about giving people access to a healthier life so that they can be there for their loved ones. It doesn't discriminate between people, no matter who they are, where they are from, young or old, starting out or settling down. Technology opens its doors to everyone and tells them that there is hope. That's what our advanced cancer diagnostic scanners do every day. For more and more people in India now, technology is hope.
Real victory is about winning hearts. That's the mark of a champion.
Thank you.
Welcome. Indian Overseas Bank, touching hearts, spreading smiles.
3 जोड़ी कपड़े और 36 किताबें, सपने देखने की फुर्सत और उनके पीछे भागने का जुनून। ये है वो जिनकी रगें कल देश के रगे बनेंगे, जिनके पैरों में आज चप्पल है, वो कल देश के पहिए बनेंगे। Because excellence drives the Skoda Rapid.
Skoda, simply clever.
In the year 2002, an idea that was far ahead of its time took shape. It broke the mold, took the road less traveled, and led to more ideas, innovation and growth.
Join us as we continue to celebrate the spirit and success of India's young entrepreneurs on Young Tech. At these times, only on CNBC TV18.
Young Turks, brought to you by Sri Ram City.
From the producers of 6 successful investathons comes a brand new season of standing up and showing your support for the Indian investor, for the health of the Indian capital markets, for building a bigger and stronger investor base, and turning words into action by running at the Investathon. NSE and CNBC TV18 proudly present Investathon 2013. Coming soon.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
बीवी का बर्थडे भूल कर देखो एक बार, वेडिंग एनिवर्सरी भूल कर देखो, लोन की ईएमआई तो ड्यू डेट के पहले भर देते हैं आप, लेकिन सर्विस टैक्स याद भी रहे ना तो लापरवाही। भर देंगे यार, भर देंगे, बाद में भर देंगे। अरे बाद में भरने वाले भाई साहब, बाद आ गया है। सर्विस टैक्स VCES का फायदा उठाइए और भरिए अपना सर्विस टैक्स बिना इंटरेस्ट, बिना पेनल्टी के। अगर आप चाहें तो इंस्टॉलमेंट में भी भर सकते हैं। सस्ते में निपटा लीजिए मामला, बाद में महंगा पड़ सकता है। फिर न कहना बताया नहीं।
VCES, सर्विस टैक्स भरिए, नई शुरुआत करिए।
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.
Let me throw this open for questions. We'll get a microphone across.
My question is, we talk a lot about skills and we talk about a lot what is required by the industry. But whenever I meet any industrialist, they say we have a huge shortage of people. And whenever I meet, people in my academia, they say we have a huge supply. So how we can, bridge this gap of corporate and academia divide?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramadura, you want to address
this? I think the demand side players, namely the corporations or those that are providing the job, have a role to play beyond simply saying that I can't get a skilled employee. They are to participate, number one, in being a part of the sector skill councils to define the national occupation standards and the qualification packs which determine exactly at what level of competency, what kind of a function you can perform. That's what we are trying to do through the NSDC, through the various sector skill councils. And I'm happy to say that number of corporates are part of this whole thing. That also includes academics, so that we bring in the way we want to disseminate it in the classroom or through a digital learning. And then we want a number of partners to adopt this and then go and deliver the content in whatever form and manner they think is appropriate.
I'm a private equity investor. In fact, I meet a lot of these small entrepreneurs that want to become medium-sized entrepreneurs. And when I ask the question about innovation as to why aren't you guys more innovative, the number one reason that they give me is that, frankly, there's a lack of IP protection. The thing is that if they come up with a new product, there's always someone out there who's going to copy it cheaper. Secondly, and this is another point, is that there's a major lack of researchers and primary researchers in science and technology. So I don't really have a specific person to address this question to. I just want to talk about IP protection and primary research in this country.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mr. Wadhwani, you want to take that up since IP was something that you discussed?
Yep. So first of all, I'll take your second question first, or second point first. There is absolutely, definitely a shortage of world-class research in India. And as I've discussed on previous occasions, my feeling is if India can't address that problem over the next few years, we have not earned the right to be a great country. We have absolutely earned the right to be a low-cost services provider, but we have not earned the right to be a great country. In terms of IP protection, I think it is part of a package of things we need to do to really get startups to become small companies and small companies to become medium-sized companies.
So my question is the gender issue. So you guys haven't touched it at all. And more women are coming into the workforce. In fact, a greater number of women are coming into the workforce than men at this point in India today. And yet, very little is being thought of or talked about in terms of their safety and their security. And I'm ashamed to say that this is the most unsafe place in the world for women to be. So what are you guys doing about it?
Women.
We need to do more.
To encourage women being a part and staying on in the workforce.
No, absolutely correct. Whatever we've done is not enough. We need to do more, and that's all I can say. I mean, we should do more. I agree with that. I mean, the other thing is that again, there are two sorts of issues. I mean, there are certain legal impediments that one can easily think.
Archaic laws, about what time women can work and what time they
but
can't.
I think frankly, I think those, particularly women's groups, would be well advised to focus on a whole lot of these and bring them out as part of the whole business of gender-sensitive development. I mean, we've interacted with a lot of women and women's groups and so on. Some ideas have come forth, and some of them get done, but we need to do more.
Thank you very much for all of your suggestions and your comments that have come in here this evening. Thank you to my panelists. We hope that whether the data is bogus or not, the solutions will not be bogus, and we do hope that at the end of all of this, we finally get something done, because unless we move and we take decisive action, this dividend that we've been talking about, the demographic advantage we've been talking about, is going to come back to bite us and bite us hard. But thank you very much for joining us here this evening. Thank you very much.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.